Like a phoenix rising from Arizona, so are the episodes of our daily space weather, where we keep making them, regardless of how many comments, views, subscribers we gain or lose. Starting things out today, looking at the local yellow dwarf, otherwise known as the sun, which has created a spooky, scary triangle of active regions, allowing everybody to be freaked out about absolutely nothing. A new sunspot has formed near the equator. Which cycle is it from, you wonder? It's from cycle 25. We've got more views to show you. It did produce a small X-ray flare as well. Let's take a look at that sunspot. Here's its formation in 171 angstroms. All right, let's get rid of all that stuff. Here are the magnetic fields. So it's a cycle 25 sunspot because of the polarity. It's got leading North Pole polarity umbra. There's a view in 304 angstroms, and we've got some custom views of that momentarily. Next, let's look at the real-time solar wind. Current solar wind density 5.8 protons per cubic centimeter. Solar wind speed 434 kilometers a second, coming off of its highs of around 512, which is a good number, by the way. It is a factor of 2, did you know? KP index is at 1 for the past 15 hours. Next, the geospace magnetosphere movie. We see a slight weakening of the magnetohydrodynamic pressure. And no real surprise there, as the solar wind speed has dropped down, as well as the solar wind density. We'll get to magnetism a little more in depth by looking at the ground magnetic perturbations, and there are those. During this polar excursion, we've got 2 North Poles and a South Pole in the southern Indian Ocean, as opposed to on the Antarctic continent, any place near the geographic South Pole. The North Net Pole is located somewhere east of Greenland, and I've advanced that because it refreshed, and we don't want to spend too much time, as there's lots of stuff to cover. And hopefully we'll have time to get to it all. So here's our first custom movie on helioviewer.org. We'll leave it in this size format, the South Solar Polar region. And here's the North Solar Polar region. Some filamentary activity up there in the northeast. Those filaments approximately 3 Earths in diameter. Let's talk about the Earth's magnetic field. It's not understood how it's generated. And new science about condensed matter is making it obvious how it's generated. Anyway, here's an article on SciTech Daily about how it can change 10 times faster than previously thought, or it can change in 1/10 the time, depending on if you like fractions or if you dislike fractions. I'm okay with math either way, I don't really care, but a new study from University of Leeds and UCLA San Diego reveals that changes in direction of the Earth's magnetic field may take place 10 times faster than previously thought. It gives new insight into the, quote, swirling flow of iron 2,800 kilometers below the planet's surface and how it has influenced the movement of the magnetic field during the past 100 years. Now, I don't believe that that's a thing. And it has to do with the way material appears to accrete in actual astrophysics versus the fictional astrophysics that a lot of people seem to believe. In any case, I don't believe that there's an iron dynamo down there. I think that the dynamo inside the Earth and the electron availability comes from someplace else. Not outside the Earth, just not from swirling iron. As when you liquefy iron, it loses its magnetic properties. But if you condense matter, it starts to do very unusual things, as there's a recent article out about how the cores of gas giants are probably made of condensed superionized water, where the oxygen forms into a lattice structure, a porous lattice structure, and the hydrogen is liquid metallic hydrogen, which is able to flow around inside of the lattice structure. A very compelling argument as to how geomagnetic fields are formed, probably giving us insight into the interiors of planets just by looking at the geomagnetic fields. Let's talk more about condensed matter physics now. A lot of folks out there believe that the sun and all stars, and indeed all planets, are comprised of condensed matter, not fusion cores. No evidence of fusion going on inside the sun. And if you take an astronomy class, you'll be taught that about 97% of the visible universe is comprised of plasma, and it's looking less and less likely to be true, probably comprised of condensed matter. So this is going to be a constantly emerging science here, and what happens to basic materials such as hydrogen or even water when they're in an ultra condensed state is interesting to say the least. They turn black, they become superconductive, they give up electrons, and that's part of the reason why we made the series. And we have a playlist on the YouTube playlists called The Diamond Anvil, Too Hard to Smash, because the emerging science is too hard to smash. I don't just go around searching for articles with the word smash in the title, by the way. If you haven't watched any of our episodes, well, go check it out. If you simply type in The Diamond Anvil, Too Hard to Smash, you'll find the videos. Next, thanks patrons and everybody who supports the channel in any way, whether it's doing collaborations or whether it's promoting the content, sharing, etc. The main source of funding for the content is indeed our patrons. Please consider becoming one, as we are nowhere near our goals for 2020. And let me make it perfectly clear to you that there are a lot of goals to do, and one of them will be achieved on Saturday. More about that later. We're also on Subscribestar and PayPal, so please visit the links below the videos and support us. Look for also Amazon associate affiliate links coming out soon, as we've got some things we're going to shop for, and we're going to tell you about the things and why we bought them. We are streaming live to Twitch as we do most days, thanks to all of our subs over there. And we also are on YouTube and on BitChute. So, thanks for leaving a comment, Snitcherama. What up, Sugas? Wie heißt du? Wait, wie heißt du? Wie geht's? Wie geht's? So please don't forget to press like and subscribe on YouTube and share the content on your social media if you like it. Tell your friends, tell your foes, tell your science noobs and your science pros. There's the BitChute page, thanks to our latest subscriber over there. Please check us out on BitChute as well, as there's exclusive content. And welcome once again to the SMAshlights section of the SMASho stream, where I talk about whatever I want, whether it's COVID-19, whether it's pronouncing the word cheddar and how to say cheddar, okay, cheddar, can you say cheddar? Or if it's about people freaking out about absolutely nothing, or if it's about media bias and propaganda, and how big tech is trying to break the internet and information itself and not realizing that the internet can break big tech, but big tech can't break the internet. Let's read a quote. Deaths expressed as a percent of those living in medical care institutions is 0.682%, more than 50 times the death rate of the rest of the population at 0.012%. The death rate of the overall population is 0.022. Have you heard any YouTube channels forecasting this death rate, folks? If you want to read the article, it's on the American Institute for Economic Research.org, AIER.org. And if you don't follow me on Instagram, you might not see things like this video of this pine borer beetle. Check it out. It was like 2 inches long, chilling on the screen. And the holes in the screen are some indication of the size. It's very hard to show scale, as if you start breathing on a bug like this, it starts getting pretty crazy, making weird noises and clicking at you. The pine borer beetle. Please don't identify yourself as mentally handicapped. Now, there's a lot of conjecture out there that Patricia Arquette may be mentally handicapped. I don't know. I'm not making a comment. Patricia Arquette has become unhinged, claiming that Donald Trump is not the legitimate president of the U.S. And it turned into a tweet storm. Apparently, Kevin McCarthy, according to Ms. Arquette, has turned the U.S. into a cheapo Russian colony. She thinks government and insurance companies need to say, if you get COVID and were found not to wear your mask in public, then you pay your medical bills. Now, Patricia Arquette's ultra rich, and she doesn't have to worry about medical bills. She's probably self-insured. And would consider it good news if the President of the United States was diagnosed with COVID-19. Since according to Patricia, otherwise known as Patty, Donald Trump has done nothing but expedite climate change-inducing policies with 4 more years that would only get worse. Somehow I don't think she understands atmospheric physics. Say no to mass extinction and the destruction of our planet. Vote Democrat. I guess for Joe Biden. By the way, for all you Bernie supporters out there, all you Bernie believers, Bernie bros, Bernie Sanders supporters, you know who you are. I think it's insane that your party has nominated Joe Biden, a guy who's not even present in any conversation, completely deranged, and can barely put together one coherent sentence. Patty Arquette says, "You-hoo, women's right to choose is hanging by a thread." No, women's right to chose is hanging by a thread. I guess Patty's a little bit illiterate, as she doesn't need to be able to read and write, being an ultra-rich leftist actress. Do not let Trump win. You lose the courts for a generation, and you will lose many things. Yes. Do you think Patty is Mansa-ing, making America not suck again? Or is she making it suck a little worse? Please leave us a comment and let us know what you think. Or are you an international viewer who's trying to Mensa, make Earth not suck again? By the way, we are on Facebook also. And we put up the article there. So again, deaths expressed as a percent of those living in medical care facilities is 0.682. The rest of the population is 0.012, and making healthy people wear masks is godforsakingly moronic and mentally handicapped. No second lockdown, people aren't going to put up with it. By the way, if you're wondering why I have 2 accounts, it's because this account here got to 5,000 friends, and I had to make another one. So anyway, like I said, I don't go searching for articles with the word smash in the title, but here's one. Smash the COVID orthodoxy. And smash ineffective governments and policies. Tell your local legislator to make petitions appropriate to prevent the reduction of freedom in ridiculous ways that are totally ineffective and protect nobody. Your mask doesn't protect jack shit, and my mask doesn't protect jack shit. If you're sick and you have to go out in public, wear a mask. If not, stay home. Pay somebody else to get your groceries for you. Don't go out. Stay home when you're sick like any responsible human being does. When you return from the grocery store, wash your hands. Call it a day. Moron, coronavirus. Putting the moron in coronavirus. The media is a moron, and it's obsessed with COVID cases. But things like sick people are more important. By the way, there is zero, count them, zero evidence of asymptomatic transmission. In other words, if you're sick and you got snot pouring out of your nose and you're coughing and you're having trouble breathing, known as dyspnea, stay home or go to the hospital or whatever. Personally, I don't prefer to be coughed on without a global pandemic, and if it was up to me, my grocery shopping procedures would be exactly the same as they were in December, which is go to the store, don't dress like a complete godforsaken Covidiot wearing a mask, don't wear gloves, go shopping, come home, put your groceries away, wash your hands, and prop your feet up on a job well done. I'm just letting the article scroll here because I guess the New York Post is printing some truth to nonsense. Cheers to the New York Post. Let's move on to more stuff. Should pro athletes be more worried about coronavirus or lightning? Well, I guess you're more likely to die of lightning. And by the way, the yearly likelihood of you dying of lightning is 1 in 1,222,000. And in your entire lifetime, it's 1 in 15,300. Now, some of us professional athletes are a little bit more susceptible than others because our sport takes place largely outside, like, cycling. Turns out it's a very unusual occurrence to being injured by lightning. 25 players in the NBA have tested positive, except, guess what? They had 0 to minor health issues at the time. So yeah, asymptomatic cases aren't scary, have nothing to do with the pandemic, and have everything to do with politics. What good comes from this ridiculous, nonsensical, infantile behavior that the human species has pretty much adopted worldwide in response to the pandemic? Shout out to Jeffrey Tucker at the American Institute for Economic Research. I'll tell you what good comes from it. 1, the media has completely debunked itself. So if you've been addicted to news, please get unaddicted. Your day will improve instantaneously. 2nd, I've saved a tremendous amount of money by not going to restaurants, bars, and movies. And 3rd, I've learned a hugely valuable lesson that civilization can be dismantled in a matter of months. Now, I work in the administrative aspects of testing your food supply, and chances are something that you've eaten, if you buy anything at a grocery store, chances are something you've eaten in the past day or two was tested by the company that I work for. And it's entirely true that civilization can be dismantled in a matter of months, and it's entirely true that civilization was never even close to being dismantled as a result of the spooky, scary COVID pandemic. Let's talk about how Google is a total scam and not a verb, whether it's AdSense scams or whether it's search algorithm scams or whatever kind of scams. There's a million different scams. That's Google. When you wonder why search results are completely phony, that's Google. When you want to see a company go straight out of business, that's a Google. Telling you all lies, companies that are despised, just like Google. When you want to squash a disgusting insect, that's a Google. We've got a whole entire topic thread at smashamash.com/forum, where Amanhotep says, YouTube, a product of Google, recently changed the format of the comment section under the video, something that happens regularly because they have to repeatedly change where all the buttons are on their software so that you accidentally click on the nonsensical ads. Please leave a comment if you would actually advertise your company on the Google Junkware YouTube platform. Amanhotep thinks it's mostly beta testing so far. The algorithm is learning something about our ways of interacting with the comments section, which is entirely true. It's creating a psychological profile. It's utterly biased in terms of search results, and your search results in different countries will be totally different. Go ahead, mess around, use a VPN, do Google searches, do YouTube searches. By the way, those are the 2 largest search engines in the world. The largest search engine is Google. The second one is YouTube. And it's not even close as far as number 3. Anyway, if you want to read more about it, I've put up more information about internet studies, about things like the search manipulation effect, the mind control associated with Google's junkware, the way Google tried to interfere with the 2016 presidential election, the way Google posed a serious threat to democracy and how to end that threat, the latest whistleblower, why Google posed a serious threat to how to break Google's monopoly on search and make its index public. By the way, Google is written on entirely open source code, and their code is entirely closed source. So The reason it became the world's biggest search engine is because it had simple algorithms, and now its algorithms are so complex, I doubt anybody knows how to unwind them or have any clue what the real effects would be. Hey Google, learn to code, boomer. Check out mygoogleresearch.com, which will redirect you to abert.org, AIBRT.org, to learn more about that. And thanks for tuning in to today's smAshlights section. Now let's get on to some more things. 10.7 centimeter radial flux is still at 69, and the space weather enthusiast dashboard has moved. Why they decided to make a different URL for it, I have no idea, but there is no radial flux data on the new console. So anyway, here's a cherry-picked graph of sunspots. Look, oh my gosh. Look how few sunspots. Oh, noes! It must be a grand solar minimum. Holy cripes! Except we really don't have a lot of data before the 1970s on very much of anything besides sunspot number. Let's move on to more stuff. The X-ray flux is quite flatlined, although we saw a nearly B-class flare at about 1720 yesterday, universal time. Gauss proton flux is totally flatlined, no surprise there. Magnetometer is continuing to look spiky and sawtoothed, as I've forecasted. Here's why. It's because we've got all kinds of different plasma densities out here in the corona. We've had some coronal mass ejecta, which, by the way, NOAA and NASA seem to think some aspect of will hit the Earth. I disagree, as I stated yesterday. We are solidly in the North Pole current sheet, shown here in green, and we will remain there for at least another 12 hours, I'd say. Although we could switch now that we see a sunspot north of the equator. Here's the line of sight field plot. Let's see if at the end we see any perturbations in the B field, shown here in blue. And we really don't see very much effect on the B field, at least at this point. All eyes on that sunspot. Here's the coronal mass ejecta that we see, and there's actually still some solar protons blasting out here, and this is an ongoing situation. So check out the Integrated Space Weather Analysis dashboard if you like. Go to page 7, and you'll find the stereo A Core 2 Space Weather Beacon. And so some of that is Earth facing there, but I don't think it's like fully going to strike the Earth, as we don't see any sort of a real halo here. And there you can see the tail end of that coronal mass ejection. I don't know what NOAA and NASA are talking about, as again I'm not seeing it. There should be some ejecta on this side also if it were to strike Earth. And keep in mind, Earth orbits the Sun in this sort of a fashion. So we're kind of moving away from that ejecta. I would say once again, NOAA is incorrect. But only time and solar wind telemetry will truly tell us. And it looks like we've got some missing data there. I don't know why. I don't even care. Let's look at cosmic rays. Here's a Patates neutron monitor showing us fairly flat over the past 30 days. Barentsburg, same deal there. Let's look at Athens, Greece. Here's Athens, I think. A much farther south neutron monitor, and yes, they are pressure-corrected values. Pretty flat. A slight downtick at Athens over the past 30. Check out Mexico City. Before we go to Oulu, Finland, there's Mexico City. Significant downtick there over the past 30 days on its pressure-corrected values. And here's Oulu, Finland, and DOMC Antarctica. There's Oulu, quite flat on the past 30. There's DOMC Antarctica. A little bit anomalous looking. DOMB Antarctica still not sending data during this Antarctican winter. Let's look at some transients. Here are the X-ray outbursts from Sagittarius A star. So here's the multi-year graph, and here's the 30-day graph. And you can see it's pretty much in a normal operating range here. X-ray emissions from the core of the Milky Way galaxy, known as Sagittarius A star. Let's look at another object here, Cygnus X1, famously bet on by Carl Sagan and Stephen Hawking, and the first object widely believed to be a black hole. There are the recent X-ray emissions from that. And it is in a fairly normal state here, also in between 0 and 0.1. Let's go to the other side. Let's stay on this side of the galaxy, actually. We'll look at Cygnus X3 next. Celestial pole star at the other end of the precessional cycle, known as Deneb, has come out of its quiescent state again. We'll be keeping an eye on that to see if it moves into a very active state or just a normal state. And lastly, let's just look at the Crab pulsar real quick as a reference. Way on the other side of the galaxy there, the opposite sort of side of the galaxy from where Cygnus is located, and it looks like we might have some missing data there. So I doubt that the Crab pulsar has suddenly shut down, as it's one of the most reliable and the strongest reliable X-ray source in the sky, so reliable that it's used to calibrate X-ray telescopes. And these transients here are right in its normal operating range, so nothing too exciting there. And let's look at one other one here, just as a reference, the Vela pulsar, which is kind of over in the same vicinity from our perspective in the sky. There's the Vela pulsar. We saw some strong transients there around day 168 out of the Vela pulsar, otherwise staying in its normal range as well. Here's where stuff is in the solar system at theplanetstoday.com, and we've started using the desktop version because something's gone wrong with their mobile version. As we see a planetary pileup where every planet in the whole system is all on the same side of the sun. Earth, Jupiter, and Saturn are lining up, and you've got interesting stuff happening in the sky. If you get up before dawn, you should have a fantastic view of all kinds of things. Jupiter, Saturn, the Moon, Mars, Venus, and even Mercury if you've got a low horizon. Please leave us a comment if you're viewing from the East Coast out into the Atlantic Ocean. We see a small increase in the electron flux, finally. Highest levels of electron flux we've seen since April, folks. So this is finally ramped back up. A little uptick in the electron flux. So there it is in the 3-day data, the GOES 16. And I wouldn't be surprised to see this increase further today, as we've had a huge electron shortage. Here's the total electron content. The entire air column, this is what we use to see GPS errors. And we see some anomalies once again over the Mexico-Caribbean region here at nighttime. You can see these blobs here kind of sticking around at nighttime. Here's the ionosphere, 6 hours of data. And this is from Government of Australia Bureau of Meteorology. And let's bring up the latest image. It's looking a little anomalous, not nearly as anomalous as yesterday. Still a bit anomalous here, as we see a pretty charged up nighttime side, and again, not like yesterday, but we've seen some big earthquakes kick off, such as this 6.6 in Batang, Indonesia. So there's where that is, located out there in the Java Sea. No tsunami link or anything on that. Let's just check it out real quick at tsunami.gov. And we don't even see it on the map. That's kind of surprising. Let's go down the list of the past 24 hours. As we saw a pretty significant uptick here in earthquakes, such as this 4.8 in Tonga at depth, in the deep earthquake capital of the world. Look, there's one at the Azores, a very rare earthquake there between the North American and African plates. And let's go up the list. Mariana Island saw a 5.8 at depth. So lots of deep quake, folks. If you're in an earthquake-prone zone, I would have a plan. I mean, places like this, especially, and this. And I used to draw this all the time. Those two regions right there, folks, if you're located there, or indeed here, I would have an earthquake plan to be an asset, not a liability if buildings start to fall. And if you can't afford a bug-out bag, just step outside and take a guess which buildings might fall. That could save your bacon if you're evacuating when things are gyrating. Here's a 4.7 at the Fiji Islands. It's at over 500 kilometers depth. Please leave a comment if you think there's a bunch of iron down there. Next, we see a 5.6. That one came in at 1819 at 380 kilometers there. Oh, and there's a 6.2 at Micronesia also. So those only 3 minutes apart. So a 6.2 at Micronesia, and then 6 minutes later, a 5.6 at 380 kilometers depth, due north of there at Japan. So big earthquake uptick, folks. The state of Yap. I never heard of the state of Yap. Here's that 6.6 that came in at 2254 UT. That's universal time. And it was at depth, folks. 528 kilometers depth. If that would have happened at the surface, that would be about a magnitude 8 earthquake. And that would certainly generate some sort of output from tsunami.gov. Whether or not it would generate a tsunami, I have no idea. But the Java Sea is pretty shallow, and that is a known region for extreme earthquake danger, as tsunamis are the deadliest thing that an earthquake generates, typically. Here's another deep one, a 4.2 at Fiji at 587 kilometers, followed only 25 minutes later by another 4.5 magnitude quake at 489 kilometers. And then only 20 minutes later, a 5.1 at Indonesia at 113 kilometers. So big earthquake uptick, folks. Again, have a plan to be an asset, not a liability. If you're wondering who the cavalry is, it's probably because you're the cavalry. Volcano rundown includes Abiko, flight level 12,000 there, Mount Ibu, exploding. Minor emissions have produced a 6,000-foot plume of ash, flight level 14,000 at Semeru as it upticks. Explosive activity continues at Dakono, producing a flight level 6,000 there. Explosive activity continues at Ecuador, producing a 21,000-foot flight level. Revenador, flight level 14,000, as it explodes, and continuous emissions from Sabancaya down in Peru are an indication that you should not attempt to do a double backflip over the caldera. Let's look at jet streams. Here are the jets of the east. Here are the jets of the west. Here's where pressure cells are located. Windy.com has a great mobile app, by the way. I use it on the regs. It's got more data than you could possibly even want. And we're advancing this till tomorrow into the GFS forecast. There's where things are expected to be at 12 noon tomorrow, according to the forecast dello GFS. Next, looking at lightning maps to see a lot of lightning. Check it out. And let's zoom in to show you thunder rolling in. Hey, Dallas, get outside and look to your southeast. You may see some sprites down there. Get your camera, put it on a tripod, take a long exposure shot of that thunderstorm top. You may be amazed at what you find. And yes, you can forecast thunder. Hey, Canton, there's thunder rolling in. Lightningmaps.org. Or perhaps you'd prefer blitzortung.org. Water vapor maps for Africa and Europe are next. Water vapor maps for the Far East and Oceania. Water vapor maps for the Americas. Check out the major low pressure system here. Clockwise rotating low, big time low. Just underneath the South Atlantic anomaly. Here's what the cloud situation looks like over the U.S. Big series of clouds over South Dakota once again. And here's the water vapor map for that same region. And let's zoom in on the convergence. South Dakota being all over the news lately, as Bernie Sanders used to be proud of his country. And now I have no idea what he thinks. Back in 2016, he was very proud of this country. Yeah. Anyway, there's that convergence zone. Massive pressure gradients there. If you're flying a plane across that area, expect some turbulence, to say the least. Impress your friends. Freak out your foes by forecasting airline turbulence. Here's a U.S. Doppler radar. And that large cloudy region up there is producing some severe storms in northeastern Nebraska. About to move into Iowa. Shout out to Iowans such as Aubrey. And thanks, SMASH team, for tuning in. Thanks for flying American SMASHways. Please keep your head and arms inside the SMASH plane at all times. Here's SUNSPOT 2767. It's going to be 2767. And it's beta class already, folks. We've got two different polarity umbra. This one's north, this one's south, making it a cycle 25 sunspot. Next, the GOES magnetometer. There's the latest update on that. There are the fields. And it looks like the trailing umbra might have already vanished, or is maybe in the process. It looks less organized than it did last time I saw it. There's the full disk. And let's bring up one more 48-hour SDO video before we close things out. This is the 131 angstroms view. This, in addition to 94, is the highest temporal resolution, as it takes 10 images per minute instead of only 2. And you can see a little bit of filamentary activity associated with SUNSPOT 2767. Thanks for tuning in. Remember, stare at the sun, don't drink it. If you do, don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may that solar wind be at your back and that Covidiots absent. Yeah, just absent.